This is Boxing Tickets NI in association with SB Sports Chaco. We're delighted to be joined by the one and only Kristina O'Hara McCafferty. That's a bit of a tongue twister.
That's quite long, isn't it?
It is. Obviously, first time we've had you on. Obviously delighted to have you on. For the last couple of years, we've only had one pro female boxer here, and I think Kathy McAleer's probably have to change her stance now, because her mantle for the last few years was Northern Ireland's only female pro boxer, and obviously now you come along. But delighted to have you on, Kristina.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I was just sort of saying to you off camera, but an hour or so ago here in Belfast, it was not looking too bad a day, and the wind and the rain's come, and just the normal weather now.
Yeah, it's been freezing though. The last couple of days has been absolutely freezing.
Definitely has, and probably oil prices or gas prices went up because of it.
Yeah, I was sure they were going up anyway, so.
Definitely, as it's something we're all used to. Obviously, as your first time on, we always like to get to know more about boxers. Obviously, sometimes in the lead up to fight week, everybody starts approaching everything else, and you never really get your full story out on obviously where you come from in the sport. So always like to kick off, it's probably hopefully be the first of many interviews we'll have with you, but always like to kick off to get to know you more, and obviously people that subscribe to YouTube and everything else, so they can know more about you, because I think from anybody that knows of what you've accomplished as an amateur, it's only a case of when you become a world champion or not. If I think it's in a lot of people's heads that, and probably your own, that's the same.
100%.
But what age did you start out boxing? And like, I guess, in a sport that's mostly populated by men, why did you get involved in boxing?
I started boxing when I was 11, 10, maybe turned 11, just turned 11. And it was on the box club on the Suffolk Road, Emerald, ABC. That's where I initially started. I don't know. I think being a kid, I could, like, my earliest memory of boxing was maybe being 5 or 6, and my daddy and my mummy, putting the boxing gloves on me and the siblings, and we were punching the head of each other in the kitchen. And I think sort of from then, it was just something that I wanted to do. Like, I didn't have a damn love for it, but it was something that I'd always thought about. And then when I got a bit older, and it was in would have been our local youth club. And me and my friend just decided that we were going to go in one day, but we were going to have a laugh, to mess about and just whatever. And I ended up, that was me, just after that day, I was just hooked straight away.
It's interesting. Sometimes, sometimes people get involved. I know there's so many boxing clubs in Belfast, probably within a mile radius sometimes as well. But it's interesting to hear, obviously, other people's influences and why they get involved in sport. Sometimes, I think there was somebody I interviewed not long ago, and they said they heard music coming from somewhere and opened the door and walked in and seen people fighting and going, "This is brilliant." Probably as
a fake club in the club.
probably as you as a young female, you're probably go to the boxing club. There's probably some fit lads there, as you sort of, and I guess it's the same for blokes as well, but more so you would just gone, some, maybe some nice looking guys in there,
Jesus, no.
Sort of that.
I was too young to think about that sort of stuff. I was only 10 or 11. I was young.
It was still Barbie dolls then, was it?
Well, I mean, something like that.
But how did you find sort of you starting out boxing and things like that? I guess a good thing, I would probably say to anybody, male or female, you have to come up with some sort of knowledge in boxing, because particularly more with females nowadays, there's a lot of, you see with social media, there's a lot of bullying and things like that. But you being a boxer, how did you find it then within your local community and obviously school and things like that? Did you find that because people knew you were a boxer, they didn't say anything bad about you?
Yeah, people sometimes, people would have tried to challenge you. Even being a kid, when you're 11, 12, 13, and I always remember people trying to challenge you because, you think you're a boxer, and I used to go it's so pathetic. But now where I came from, I think everybody just sort of knew that that's what it was. Everybody knew who everybody knew me. And because we all came from the same place, so we all sort of had that wee clique where everybody knew each other. So it never really got much grief out of like friends or the community or anything like that. But school, I remember when I was getting into like secondary school, you used to get people going, that's a boys' sport, and how do you boxing with the boys and all, and then it just, after a while, it went away. People just started to be familiar with, right, this is what she's doing now, we'll leave it alone. Because it's not like I done it for a week and then stopped. Like, it was something that just went on for years. So, I mean, listen, see, no matter what you do in life, you're always going to get people criticizing it anyway, aren't you? It's what you believe in yourself, and I believed that I was going to stick at it, and I was going to take it as far as I could take it. So no matter what anybody said to me, it didn't faze me,
And how did you find, like, I guess, probably since probably been unfair in other females in the sport, but probably in Ireland more so since Katie turned over, there's been more of a focus on female boxing and everything else. But obviously, you growing up as an amateur, there probably wouldn't have been a lot of potential female fights. Sometimes, like even now we see in certain weight categories, people get buys. People become champions because there's nobody in the weight class.
It was so unheard of. Like, my first day in the boxing club, Harry Murray, like, straight away, you're here, like, you're good, like, you're gonna go, like, on my first day, and made me feel so welcome, and he treated me just like one of the boys. I was part of the team, and that was it. Obviously some of the boys and some of the other coaches at the time had an issue with it because it was so unheard of. But Harry didn't care. Like, he was just like, well, if you don't like it, then beat it because it's staying. So he, like, I have to obviously give my credit to him. He was the first person to ever actually welcome me into the world of boxing. Like, besides my parents, and they were on board straight away. Like, but in terms of people in boxing, like, he was the first person ever to make me feel comfortable being a boxer.
I think it's because for when people think of boxing, only think sometimes, probably wrongly, of it being just a male sport, and now more of a focus is going, well, it's not just male, it's it's male and female, and Katie Taylor's probably, arguably, people have different opinions, but she's our greatest boxer in Ireland, male or female at the moment, and it doesn't matter on the sex side of it. She's, for what she's accomplished. But obviously, you growing up as an amateur in clubs and things like that, there have been times where they probably went, you're going to be sparring, one of the lads. It was probably hard for them to take because everybody says you don't have a girl,
Well, that was a massive problem. Like, even in my first boxing club, there was no girls. Like, even in competitions that you were entering, you weren't getting fights. I would say probably my first 10, 11 titles were by walkover. But when Harry would have phoned up the other clubs, and I have a boxer here, such and such weight, maybe 32 kilo, I think. I had my first, like, proper fight. That was like 32 kilo. And he used to go, yes, no problem. We have a lad here, blah, blah, blah. And he used to bring me down, but he wouldn't, like, I don't think he actually ever said with a girl here. It's just with a boxer, and 32 kilo. And when we got down, he used to go, that's a girl, But most 90% of all my sparring would have been boys, like, until I got a bit older,
Did you, when you're winning titles by default nearly because there's nobody in your weight class, was it tough to keep yourself motivated, knowing I just want to fight? You don't want to win something by default. Probably in anything nowadays, you don't want to just win something and go, I want to actually earn it rather than just giving it. Was it sort of?
Well, I believe you earn your titles in the gym, and that's something that I was always told. You do the work in the gym. You make your weight, but if you're making weight, you do your good sparring, and you do your hard work in the gym. So at that time, that was what I was told. So doing the hard work in the gym spurred me on. When you were getting walkovers and walkovers and walkovers, but you were getting good sparring and you were doing good training, and for me that was my win until I actually started getting competitive and actually fighting like other girls. So in terms of, like, I just feel like you do your hard work in the gym even now. you know you're going to get somebody at the end of it, but it's still the hard work's done in the gym, and that's something Jared always says too.
And I
Train
guess,
hard, you'll never get easy fights, but you do your work in the gym.
and I guess sometimes, you know, like even when you weren't able to get fights and winning titles, it was building your confidence up even more. The fact that going, you know, people don't want to fight in my weight class. Everybody's scared to fight me because they're seeing them winning all these titles. And
yeah, and that's something else. It was always like massive, like the seeing all lists of competitions that you won, and then people would have pulled out of fights because they thought that you were, you know, so experienced, which I was, but it wasn't in terms of fighting. I was in because I had all these titles, you know. But yeah, so people always used to pull out of fights when, you know, you're just first starting off. Like that was kept too. You really got a fight, and then it never came.
and like looking, you know, probably snippets of all your amateur career, Irish senior, Ulster senior, EU gold, European silver, Commonwealth silver. You pretty much had a probably a full house full of trophies. You know, people sometimes say they're you know, they're highly established amateur. You probably can't get much better than you had as an amateur.
Yeah, I don't know. There's still so much I would have liked to have done as an amateur. You know, I would have liked to get a world title as an amateur and Olympics and things like that. But just the way things went, it just never got like that for me. But yeah, my mummy still has a big picture of Muhammad Ali and all my medals hanging on it, and my cup, my European Union gold, is still on top of the fridge with my medal around it.
And probably
So
a couple of tea bags in it or something.
It's on top of the fridge. Yeah, but my mummy and daddy keep them all. Like so I have in me and George's home, we probably have some of the, you know, the ones as when you got like senior level. Sell some of their ones, but all my ones as kids, like my parents have.
So your parents have nearly like an album, sort of, you know, like a scrapbook, sort of all the newspaper clippings, so you winning titles and things like that. They have at these go, now, Kristina, if you don't do this, we're going to show everybody all these pictures. And
no, it's just that I think they're but there's probably about 50 of them in their kitchen downstairs on the wall. But I would say all the other ones they're in a box put away in the attic maybe. But they kept them, so.
And I sort of, as I know we're going to keep going on, you know, sort of building it sort of into it, but something that people might find strange is your husband Jared, he trained you. I know that obviously people have it like father son and father daughter sort of things, but like your husband training you, first of all, how do you find him training you? Just it's no different, or I guess you've been doing it for so long, it's sort of, you know, yeah, what's the difference with it?
Second nature now. Like George's like the best coach I've ever worked with. You know, is just his boxing background and his boxing history, and he's so knowledgeable to the sport. So I feel like just he's the best coach that I've ever worked with, and I've worked with coaches all over the world too. You know, with me being an international fighter too, you're always like traveling with different coaches, and but he is by far one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. So it makes it even more like of a good thing, you know, knowing that he's one of the best coaches. Plus, he's my husband. You know, but he doesn't let me away with anything. I'll say it. He doesn't let me away with nothing in the gym.
The reason I sort of asked is I've took my other half a few times to the gym, and she always says that I beast her more than a PT would. Does he try? Did Jared try to be the boss in the gym because you're the boss at home, and do you get your revenge when it comes to housework?
There's no such thing as bosses in our house. You know, we when we go into the boxing club, we're not husband and wife anymore. We're boxer coach, and when we go home, we're husband and wife, and that's, you know, it's a job, and we're there for a job, and that's the way we try and treat it. We just try and be as professional about it as we can, and sometimes it's hard, but sometimes it's the best thing that could ever happen. You know.
It's definitely probably, he knows you probably, other than your parents, he knows you more than anybody else, so he'll know what makes you tick. You know, if he needs to get you angry, he knows a certain words he can say to get the best, you know, another 10% out of you.
Yeah, but he also knows, you know, the mental health side of things too, and he knows when you need to give yourself a break. And sometimes when I go into the gym and I'm having a bad day, he knows, and not that he'll take it easy on me, but he'll not bust my chops. The do that, extra bit more. So there's that understanding there too. But sometimes there's the other part of it where you would go, look, I know whatever, and you're probably having a bad day, but we're here to work, and you have to get your head out of what you're thinking and put your head in the gym, and let's get through it. We'll get through the next hour, 2 hours, and we'll work hard, and we'll go home and went down and have our dinner and get a cup of tea and be with our son. So I mean, it's a blessing and a curse at times.
It is. It definitely
mostly a blessing.
It makes everything interesting, obviously, sometimes, and just running through the norm, sort of, sometimes people have a coach and it just seems like go to work, go home, eat, go to the gym, sleep, and then it's just in repeat. Whereas when obviously you have your husband and stuff there as well, it's going, well, it keeps it interesting every day. You can mix something up in the gym, and everything else for you. But I'm guessing obviously the biggest relief is you returned to the ring for the first time in more than 3 years. I'm guessing probably more than anything, it was just a relief to be back in there fighting properly.
Yeah, it was such a stressful 3 years. Like, obviously there was the whole COVID thing, and the stuff that went on behind the scenes even before COVID. We'll not go too much into that, but and then I had my son, and I kind of, me and Jared like kind of sat down and spoke, and we said, like, I've spent my entire life as an athlete. Right now I want to be a wife and a mother. And we gave ourselves a year to have our son and take a bit of a break and just enjoy our time as a family. But that only lasted about 8 weeks. And then I was back in the gym again. It was only slow and just enjoying being back in the gym again. But I mostly just the whole time was just trying to like figure out where I was at. Because obviously having a baby is a massive change to your life. So you're trying to figure out like how to be a mummy and an athlete and a wife, and how to like cope with all of that, because it's very stressful. But once we got up and got into our routine, and everything, we were doing everything together, and it sort of makes it a whole lot easier, like to know, right, I can do all these things. I can be a wife and a mum and a boxer, and once I started to like trust myself and trust like Jared's opinion on how to like essentially just build yourself up again, then that was me. I was ready to go. I was ready to fight again. So like getting back into the ring after 3 years was like, it was just a complete relief. Like, it was such a struggle to get back in the gym after having a baby, and then you feel like you're starting off as a novice. You're trying to build yourself back up, and so it was definitely a relief to get back in the ring and take a couple of heads off along the way.
I know something I've learned from my other half over the last 5 years or so is, a woman's work's never done, and we're obviously not going to I'm not going to pick sides or anything, but even just being a mum, and everything else, to then be a boxer on top of it, and obviously all the extra stress and strain you have of it all, has it obviously helped to have your son now as an extra motivation? And I know you'd said in interviews and stuff since was, it's all for your son, it's all to provide for him for the future. Does that give you that added motivation probably you might have needed at the right time to sort of remember why you boxed?
I think everything happened at the perfect time. I always wanted to start my family with Jordan. I wanted to start it while I was young, and essentially take them a couple of years while I'm still young, where I can come back and kind of let my career take off from there. At the end of my amateur career, I was done with boxing. I didn't think I was going to box again, and then I just once my son was born, and I felt the warmth. I got a massive wake up call that like life's too short, and like now we have this newborn baby, and you know, you want to give the world to them. You want to give the world to your kids, and you know, obviously somewhere down the line, I want to be able to look after my parents too, and you know, and my brothers and sisters who come from a big family, so I need to be making a couple of million. But yeah, you just want your family to be happy and healthy and safe and comfortable. You know, sometimes it's not always comfortable, but I mean, we're all still here, and we're all just happy that I'm back. Like all of us are just happy that I'm back boxing again. So, but yeah, it is all doing it all from my family and my son and my husband and his family too. You know, Jared comes from a very, very big boxing family.
Mhm.
So his uncles were all boxers, his brothers were all boxers, his father was an Olympian. You know, so it's just like you want to do it now and to be able to look after them all, and I just hope someday I'll be able to do that for them.
Definitely, it's that motivation you need sometimes to keep it going.
Yeah.
Sort of were you touching, you know, on the Olympics and things like that. You know, we're just past Tokyo there. You know, it was Tokyo, what, 2020, but it happened in 2021. You know, I'm sort of looking at the date on my laptop here, and I'm sort of going, are we in 20? I still don't feel like I'm in 2022 yet, and we're 3 weeks
I
in.
know. I know.
But there's a sort of, you know, I know with obviously successful Olympics, Kelly obviously winning gold and Aidan winning bronze, and Kurt coming so close as well. Obviously, your ambition was to go to Tokyo, you know, and probably achieve your dreams. Do you sort of look at Tokyo sort of, you know, and I remember speaking to Jason Quigley, who obviously done pretty much everything as an amateur and just didn't go to the Olympics, and sort of looked at him going, I could have been there, I could have been doing this. Do you now see your motivation in going for what you weren't able to achieve and going to Tokyo, that they'll give you that extra fire as a pro?
I think after what happened to me, I think the dream of the Olympics had came and gone. So once I knew it wasn't going to happen for me, I sort of just dropped it at that, and I didn't let it overwhelm me. I watched them and I supported them and I cheered them, and I'm happy that, you know, Aidan's a friend of mine, and his sister's a friend of mine too, and you know, and Kelly obviously, and all of them, the whole lot of them, you know, I trained alongside them all. So it's good to be able to see, like, we train together, and then either Olympians, you know, and I love that. I love just being able to support each other, because that's what life's about, isn't it? Just supporting each other. Like, there's enough people to tear you down, and you know, I just feel like I should pass on the power to the people, you know, go for it. And it was, when I got the news, I was devastated that it wasn't going to happen for me. But you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and that's just what it was for me at that time. So the Olympic thing kind of has came and gone for me. Now I'm looking at, you know, becoming a world champion as a pro, and just really getting over the idea of I'm not an amateur anymore. I'm a professional, and it's time to switch on and be professional about it. So it's done for me, and that's just what it is.
Sometimes you sort of have to look at it as things, you know, I guess that there's so many mottos and ways of life, but things happen for a reason. You know, probably you might look on it in a few years down the line and go, I was able to achieve or go under the radar probably maybe as a pro, because you haven't come back as an Olympic medalist or been at the Olympics. There'll be probably a wee bit less focus on you, but it means that you can do your work without the distractions of media getting in the way, and, you know, Kristina doing this, Kristina doing that. You can sort of build your profile in the same way.
I'm glad that you know, your slate's sort of clean when you go into the pro. Like, you'll always carry your amateur career with you, and like them titles that I have will never leave me. Like, nobody can take them from me. You know, so you're sort of starting fresh with all this knowledge and, you know, all these titles, and it's good to be able just to go in and start over again and take a different approach this time around, and change a lot of things, and just get stuck in and just get to the top. Like,
definitely, as it doesn't change any outcome where you want to go. You're obviously signed to United Promotions. Is that right? United Promotions. How did it come about? Unified Promotions.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm reading things wrong. How did it come about, and was there any other offers on the table at the time?
Yeah, we were sort of back and forth with a couple of different people, but there was one who I was firm on signing with in Las Vegas, and this was before Kiefer was born, and we had the contract and all sent over to us, and we were going for it, like, and then wasn't pregnant. Found out we were having a baby, and that sort of put that on the back burner. But we still keep in touch with them from the people in Las Vegas, you know, and they were happy to hear that I've signed, and my son was born, and you know, everything's going good, and they congratulated me on my debut. And so there was a couple of people who were on the table, but the thing that just got my attention so much with Unified Promotions was the fact that they were focusing on the female boxing. You know, and that to me was probably something that every female boxer wants to be a part of, just empowering other female boxers. And you know, as soon as you mentioned like what she was going to do for female boxing, and you know, essentially what I could do for them and what they could do for me, and you know, the team that we were building, and it was something I couldn't refuse. It's an offer I couldn't refuse. And they do say everything happens at the right time, and it was the perfect time.
And your debut to be on TV as well, you know, it was free to air in the UK and things like that. Yeah. You know, it's probably important for getting the right audience and to watch. You know, people have their opinions, and you know I said I wasn't going to say in an interview about 2 and 3 minute rounds, but people have so many different views and everything on boxing nowadays, and rightly so, that women are being put on level par, you know, with male boxing. But you know, it's good that obviously your debut was on, as well, classify as like terrestrial TV. It was free to view. You obviously just need a skybox and things like that to watch it. But how did you find, obviously, you know, like pretty much the most of the card in Sheffield was mostly all female fights. Probably, would it be fair to say that from what you're used to as an amateur, as you start off, sometimes you're less opposition than you've probably been used to? You know, when you would have fought somebody amateur, you're fighting somebody really skilled. Whereas your first couple of fights as an amateur, as a pro, you're sort of going, like, I'm used to somebody being in my face constant. To be fair, your opponent probably was to a degree, but did you find it hard to sort of adjust that and going, I'm not now looking for a wee point or things like that, you know, I'm not looking around for the judges for them to give them a wee nod and go, I won that round, sort of thing?
Not really. I mean, we were very well prepared for our debut. You know, we were sort of prepared for anything. Once we got the name of who our opponent was, Jared went and, you know, looked her up and done, you know, his sort of end of it. And we had our plan and we were ready to go. And, you know, we could have went 10 rounds the way we did. You know, we could have went 20 rounds the way we did. Or we could have, you know, took it slow and just enjoyed being in my debut. But we were here to win. We were here to fight, and so was she. You know, she brought it to the table as well, and I feel like it was a perfect debut. You know, the opponent picking was perfect. You know, it was really, really well matched. So I do think that I don't know what I expected. You know, I wasn't sure if she was going to come out and she was going to, you know, stand for the 10 rounds. For the 4 rounds. I know I'm thinking way ahead of myself. I wasn't sure if she was going to come out and just stand toe to toe the whole time, or she was going to, you know, control whatever. But I knew what I was going out to do, and I was prepared for what was to come. And you know, we worked on a lot of different things in the gym. You know, being able to just sit down a wee bit and how to, you know, control the fight essentially. So I mean, it was we were very well prepared for whatever was coming out at us.
And I guess after more than 3 years out of the ring as well, it's that controlled aggression. You sort of, you know, you miss punching somebody in the face sort of thing. It's like, just let me in there and let me punch someone.
Yeah. There's a term, itchy knuckles, and it's real. Your hands start to get itchy after a couple of weeks or a couple of months without fighting. They really do. And
obviously now, I guess, you know, the thing is, it's the eagerness to get back in again now. You were probably used to fighting so much as an amateur regularly. and it's like, right, give me another fight, you know, line them up, you know, I'll take the next one. I'll take 2 opponents in the next card. You know, if the British board would allow it, you'd fight 2 in the same night.
Yeah, probably would, like, yeah. But in terms of fighting again, obviously I want to be in the ring. I want to be as active, you know, as I can be, but that's up to the team, and it's just up to me to be ready for when they give me my date, and, you know, let them do the business side of it, and I'll just be ready for the phone call. That's my job.
The fighter fights and thinks in the ring. Everything else outside the ring, they leave it to their management. They take care of.
Well, that's the way it should be. You know, that's the way the boxer's focus should be on your boxing, essentially. You know, you gotta keep fit, stay sharp, and, you know, the business side of it is up to whoever that's up to. I don't even know who it's up to, but it's not up to me. My job is stay fit, stay ready.
Were you happy with your debut? There's probably, I guess it's like anything, you know, you're never going to be totally 100% happy. There's probably things you would have done, but are you happy, obviously, how everything transpired through the fight? Or is it probably just a case of you were giving everybody teasers of what's to come?
I feel like I have so much more to give. I mean, you know, that was my first fight back in almost 4 years. So it's a really, really long time. To be out of the ring and to get in and give a performance that I gave after nearly 4 years out I was proud of it. You know, I was proud of myself for getting there and doing all the work behind the scenes to get there. I do feel like I have a whole lot more to give, and, you know, and a few more fights that you'll believe me when I'm saying, like, my debut was probably only me at 50%. You know, because I know, like, I have so much more to show and so much more to give, but on that night that was my 100%. But I know that for me to get to my 100% will be in a couple more fights, and just allow myself to just get back into fighting again, and to get the ring rust off, essentially, and start looking for the big fights.
I guess you have to expect, I guess, that you're never going to fight 100% in your debut, because the nerves and everything else are there. I know some people say they don't have the nerves, but they agree they're sort of there and going, crikey, it's here, you know, and you sort of, as if somebody's punched you in the legs or wobbling, you know, it's like you just found out you won the lottery and you're going, oh my God, you know, it's like you're never going to be 100% in your debut, but you're 100% of what you can be, you know, and you're happy with what you've done.
That's what I mean when I say, like, and a couple more fights, you know, you'll look back and you'll go, she was right. You know, she has so much more to give, and tonight proves that. But that was on the night of fight. That was the 100% that I had to give. And I'll give every fight 100%, but I know that there's so much more in me.
And obviously praise probably came, you know, during the fight and everything else, but Anthony Crolla was doing presenting. Obviously he was co-commentating in the fight, and I think he had sort of latched on to after the first round. He said he was my world champion, but Anthony Crolla was sort of saying, you know, you're pretty much nearly ready for world title, I guess, at minimum weight. I think I sort of let you know there that after one fight you're 52nd in the world in box rec, you know, so things can happen so quickly at the weight class you're at. But is it a case of keeping yourself grounded after so long out of the ring? Is it a case of getting a few fights behind you to build the confidence up as a pro before you start chasing down titles?
I'm just happy to go with, you know, the trust my team, and, you know, I obviously my husband's my coach, and I trust his opinion more than anybody's, and, you know, I trust my manager and I trust my team. So, you know, over time, whatever they think is the best decision, then we'll sit down together and we'll make decisions together. But I'm happy enough just to be back fighting, really, and just start creating my legacy.
Go with the flow, as they say.
Yep.
They always say it's rude to ask a woman's age, but at 25, you probably, you know, when you see most people at, I think I'm right at 25 or at 21.
25, yeah.
Had to make sure I wasn't taking a hole.
That was a big jumper, wasn't it? 21 or 25?
Everybody always says they're 21, but at 25, you probably, you know, you've achieved a lot as an amateur, you become a mum and everything else, and now you're it's like version 2.0 sort of coming of yourself. So you've sort of had the time to mature yourself, and now probably being a mum will probably help you plan and prepare better for fights as well. So it'll probably
Yeah.
just bring you on more tenfold. But 25 as a pro female boxer is you know, you're still like a baby sort of in the sport as well. So you have a long time in the sport. So at fighting at minimum weight, I'm guessing obviously the plan is, you know, ideally in your head, you're probably not thinking Manny Pacquiao sort of level in the 8-weight world champion, but I'm guessing you probably go through a few divisions.
And in terms of weight?
Yeah.
Well, because I think, you know, we've talked about that a few times, because there is like so little at my weight that we might have to take a couple of fights up at the next weight division up, which is fine. You know, I'm a natural minimum weight fighter, but you know, it's just about being able to be adjustable, and you know, if the right fights are there, then you know, that's fine with me. It doesn't matter to me. Well, it doesn't matter to me what weight we're at. Like, I know what I'm capable of, and I know, you know, I'm confident in myself, and I'm confident in, you know, what my team can trust me to you know, it sort of in a way proves what they think of me, you know, to be able to be comfortable changing me weight divisions, you know. So I'm happy enough just to do what I'm meant to do, really.
Definitely is, and like you're one of two active pro boxers. Obviously, I know Kathy McAleer hasn't fought for a wee bit of time. But is it probably a case that you probably have to think of the Katie effect, and obviously any female boxers in north of the border? Obviously, Katie's, you know, done amazing things for boxing, not only as an amateur. You know, she multiple. I probably wouldn't have enough time in the day to count how many medals Katie's won, but
no,
she's now done it all as a pro as well. She's a 2-weight world champion and obviously undisputed lightweight champion. Yeah. But is it probably a case of you having that Katie effect and probably any young women involved in boxing in Northern Ireland?
Well, I hope so. You know, you do hope as a fighter and, you know, as a sports person, that you want to be able just to influence the younger generation. And like, I'm probably still one of the younger generation, you know, but people, I know that there's kids, I see them like watching me in the boxing club, and you know, and even when you go places that people are talking to you and, you know, saying you're amazing, and like being a mum and being able still like chasing your dreams, you know, it's humbling for me. So I would love nothing more than to be able to, you know, just be a positive influence on the female and the male boxers that are coming through, and even for especially the young girls, because it can be tough on you as a young girl. Like, I know things are definitely like different now from when I first started, but it can still be difficult, like for a young girl to get into, still even to this day is still a predominantly male sport. But it won't always be like that forever. So I mean, we just got to pave the way now for the next gen coming through, and you know, just spur them on and try your best just to be a good influence and a good role model. And and being a mum too, you know, I want to be a positive influence on my son and my younger sisters, and you know, just all around, just be a good influence. And that's, you know, that's what I aspire to be. So
it'd be nice in 10 or 15 years time when somebody's going, you know, that watching you box, you know, probably more in 10 or 15 years time, but in the future somebody's going to go, it was Kristina that obviously got, you know, watching Kristina on the TV and lifting a world title and being a mum and everything else, and the inspiration you've had. It's nice in years to come that said, you know what, you're the reason why I get involved in the sport.
Yeah, you hear Katie talking about it all the time, you know, and how humble she was and coming up, and so it kind of sets like just what they expect. I don't know if I'll ever be as big as Katie Taylor. Like, I don't know if anyone will. You know, she's the first female to ever make history the way she's made it. So I mean, even to be put on the same sort of scale as her in potential terms is already like humbling for me. So
definitely. And I guess when we have so little female boxers in Ireland, everybody's always going to have that comparison with Katie and everything else. And you know, and probably Katie still every day probably inspires you. You know, when people are looking at her last few fights and going, you know, have we lost what we had of that spark of Katie? And I would probably argue back to say probably the level of fighter she's fighting. You know, I know the Serrano fight looks like it's done, and it probably the biggest fight ever in women's boxing, but if Serrano's to think that the best of Katie's gone, that's the first mistake she's going to make.
Well, that's it. Like it's always about having that wee the wee secret in you, the wee silent, you know, that allows people to think that you're done. You know, there was so long in my own head that where I was thinking I was done, and I've came back and I've actually even shocked myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I mean, Katie Taylor, just you can't have any words for her. Like, what do you even say about like a person like that? Like, she's just unbelievable. Like,
it's crazy, you know, to say I haven't watched her in person yet, and you know, my other half, she's big into boxing as well, thankfully, or I'd probably been got rid of long ago. But she keeps sending me when we're going to go and see Katie fight, you know, and like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet, because when you see someone on TV aspiring and what she's done, you know, it probably for us in Belfast it's probably different from what Frampton was, because Katie's taking it to a whole new level, because she's building women's boxing at the same time. But
she's
I
making
don't know,
history along the way, for sure.
It's that, you know, it's the hair standing in your arms, you know, it's probably a different atmosphere you feel for seeing Katie, and Katie just going, it's just me, you know, she's just the same person she always was.
Yeah, okay, I agree. Yeah, she always was, you know, very humble and always very down to earth. Like, so I'm sure like it's a lot for her as well, you know, like mentally, because constantly having people putting you on this like pedestal can be a lot of pressure for a person too, you know. So I'm sure like it's some stage along the line it would have like an effect on you. People are constantly being compared to you, or you know, you're being made, like not being made because she is that what everybody's saying, but the pressure that would put on a person would be immense, like, you know. So for her to be so calm and so like collected in herself is good to see, like, because there's not many people like it.
And hopefully we're not getting to the end of time with Katie, you know, because it'll be a massive loss, you know, not even to say just for women's boxing, but for boxing and sport and across Ireland in general. So hopefully we're still hitting the peak of the iceberg sort of, and there's still a few years to come.
She definitely has a couple more fights left in her for sure. Yeah, I think so.
I guess it gets to the stage when she's done so much in this sport and been involved with it for so long, it sort of gets to the point and going, you know, what's the point nearly anymore? You know, because of the
Jared always talks about like big time, you know, like McGregor and Mayweather. Like, why would you want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do a run when you have 50 million in the bank? You know, he says it's still having that inner like drive. So like that's something that he always says, and it always sort of like sticks by you. Like, that's right. Why would you? You know, you've made your millions, but it seems like Katie's the complete opposite of that. Like, she's still there, she's still grinding, she's still working hard, and I would say she definitely has a few quid in her bank, you know. So I would definitely say that for me, I'd say she still has a good couple of fights left in her. Like,
I would love these. I know it's probably not in Katie's makeup, but I'd love to sort of see her trying the McGregor sort of trash talk. You know, I think probably what we're sort of saying that, you know, it's hard to sort of find any criticism or any weakness in Katie. I guess it's you know, if you mold something into her with the Conor McGregor trash talk, and it would probably, you know, into a different planet straight away. You know, it'd be, you know, women in boxing don't get the same money involved as men do. But it'd be nice that somebody comes in and does a bit of trash talking like Katie, where she's the best in the sport. You know, we're seeing obviously other people, you know, not bad mouth and not naming people, but other people trying different things to get themselves recognized in the sport. Katie's just been happy to.
You have to have your own sort of personality too, don't you? Like, I mean, you know, the thing that I love about a lot of boxers that come from the west of Belfast is they're all characters, all of them, you know, and they all have their different kind of idea of funny, you know, but they're all their own individual people. You know, they're not going around like trying to copy this and trying to copy that. They're just themselves, and I love to see out there. Like, and Katie will never be sucked into people, you know, here trash talking her, because like she's too laid back, and you know, I think she's too pleasant in herself to like let her. I maybe essentially she would think let herself down by like stuff like that, but I just don't think it's in her person, in her character to do things like that. You know, like look at how far she's got without it. She doesn't need to do it. Her fists talk for her, so she doesn't need to do the talking.
Definitely doesn't. It's a sort of, they always say it's the quiet ones you watch. Katie's quiet, and she's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, you know? Definitely.
Obviously, we've got to the end of questions and things we have. It's sort of one other thing I want to catch up on, sort of talk on, is the fact that boxing, you know, Belfast, obviously for the last 10, 12 years, we were so used to Frampton obviously being here. We're sort of seeing a resurgence in boxing. And you probably come into the title there as well. I think I put something up on Instagram saying, you know, fighters under 25, the talent we have, you know, 25 and under.
Yeah.
When you see the amount of talent that's coming through north and south, you know, it's probably a case of going, how many world titles are we going to have in the next probably 10 years here? You know, it's probably a great time for you to be getting involved in switching over, because, you know, it's going to be like a conveyor belt. One person's going to do it, someone else is going to do it. Well, obviously Mick Conlon fighting now in less than 2 months. He'll start that trend again for men. Katie's already there for the women, but it's starting that conveyor belt for everybody else, and you know, become like the new Cuba of obviously Olympic sort of boxing side. But
for such a small country, you know, there's so much talent here. There's been a load of I think people in and around my age, maybe some like slightly older, slightly younger. 2 seconds. Slightly older and slightly younger, but like even the talent and just them, like short handful of people that have turned over recently, like it's phenomenal. The talent in Ireland at the minute is booming, you know. And people fear the Irish. You know, when you go to like different boxing competitions, like I don't know if it's still the same now, but I remember when I was an amateur and they used to fear to draw the Irish. Nobody wanted to draw the Irish. You know, so that's, and now like we're taking it to a different level from amateur to pro, and it's a big change, and people remember your name, you know, when you're an amateur, and you know, you when you're winning titles, you stick out. And so the amount of people now that have turned over are going to make it massive in pro boxing.
Definitely, fingers crossed it goes that way. We're leaving one final one is obviously, you know, you couldn't be a professional boxer if it probably wasn't for sponsors and people getting involved. You know, to say medicals and everything else alone, it costs us through the roof. Is there anybody you want to thank for obviously sponsorship, or any thanks and obviously getting you to where you are in boxing at the moment?
Yeah, obviously first and foremost, I have to thank my team. Unified Promotions, Richard Paxson, Susanna Schofield, you know, and Crolla, all the people who work behind the scenes of the pitch in the Unified Boxing, my manager, John Rooney, the number one man, of course, my husband and my coach, Jared. I have to thank my son too, because without him I wouldn't have got that love back. So I have to thank him for that. My sponsors, I have Prime Catering, I have Jamie Wallace, massage therapy, and I have TM Chartered accounts. I'm sure there's a couple more that I have, but they're probably my 3 main ones. And just I obviously have to thank everybody for, you know, supporting me, and thank you for having me on here, and thank my parents just for me being born, you know.
but I guess, you know, like anything, you know, because you're sort of coming up in the sport, you know, into pro boxing as well, you know, if there's anybody sort of watching this that wants to get behind and sort of help you achieve your dreams in the sport, they can obviously contact you through your relevant social media pages that we'll tag when we put the interview up.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah, thank you very much.
Not a problem. But look, it's been great obviously getting to know a bit more about you. Say sometimes, you know, when we're sharing people's fight news and everything else, you sort of wonder, you know, what about this or what about this? My other half always asks me to ask questions to people, you know, I'll ask somebody random questions, but I just like to know the backstory more, because then we obviously, when we see you fighting and obviously see the different emotions, we go, well, now we can understand a bit for that, for something in this. In this.
There's still a lot for me in my amateur career that I would like to touch on. I'm just letting that settle for a bit, and I will and eventually, you know, tell my side of what happened. And but for now, you know, I know that there's a lot of people always ask me the same questions all the time, about what happened at the end of my amateur career. And for me, it's just a respect thing, for myself and for my family and, you know, my husband, and just to not go there again. But I will someday talk about it. I'm not there yet. I'm happy just to let that go. But I appreciate you respecting, you know, me not wanting to go into too much about it. So
certainly, then at the end of the day, you know, these interviews that we do are all for people's stories. You know, it's about obviously getting to know more about people rather than sort of going for clickbait and sort of, oh, Kristina said this or Kristina said that. People have to respect why you're involved in the sport rather than just trying to clickbait something out of it, you know. So it's more for us, it's like it's like, what do you call it? The guy used to do the red book, this is your life, you know. So that's what we sort of try and have our interviews on, so that you can sort of tell your story and people can understand. So when they're buying tickets off you, they go, now I know why I'm buying a ticket. Kristina's going to do this, or Kristina's going to do that, you know. But listen, well, thank you very much for your time. Obviously, we know you're a busy woman. Obviously, you know, Jared will probably coming home soon, and because you've said so much good things about him today, he'll probably make you dinner. So it's probably worked out good for you.
That's what I do. That's what I do every day. You can't knock a man like him, can you? For God's sake.
Definitely can.
Good man.
But listen, thanks very much for your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Yes, you too. Thanks for having me on.
All right,
100%. We'll have another one.
Cheers, take care. Thank you.
All right, see you later. Bye-bye.